King's Dominion has some real underrated gems, but it also has some head scratchers. I managed to get on almost every ride, so I'm going to tell you what should be kept and what should be scrapped. I'm going to start with a coaster here that you can't see, because it's an indoor coaster, and it is also a duplicate layout of a coaster that I rode in another park that I've already reviewed. So the ride is Flight of Fear, and it's kind of, well, it's indoor, as I said, and it's alien themed. So when you're going through this queue line, there's like a big UFO that you go inside, and then you get into the station, and then it's beautifully themed in there with like all these aliens and stuff. It's pretty cool. And then you get on this ride, and it absolutely flies out the station. Really punchy launch into pretty much pitch black. You can't see very much. See a tiny little bit, but not enough. There's not really any thing to see. There's no props, there's no light up sections, no UV, any of that sort of thing. It absolutely flies through that first section. Then it gets the mid-course brake run, and it sort of loses its power in the second half. I rode it in the front, I rode it in the back. The back was pretty sore in my neck muscles. A lot more intense than it was in the front. The front is great for that launch. Nonetheless, despite the fact that it doesn't have much to see when you're on the ride, I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to start strong, put this one in the keep pile. Right, the next one's a strange little coaster. It is currently known as the Backlot Stunt coaster, but it used to be known as the Italian Job. So the trains are sort of themed to minis, and they were coloured appropriately when it was the Italian Job. It's Premier Rides. Well, actually that last coaster that I just mentioned, I'm pretty sure is Premier Rides as well. And I think it's one of the few that I actually enjoy, because most of their rides I'm not a big fan of. I think I've said this in other videos, I don't think we've got Premier Rides over here in the UK. Could be wrong, pretty sure there aren't any coasters over here by that manufacturer. Nonetheless, it looks kind of cool. Like, it's quite a nice layout. There's a reasonably punchy kind of launch, and then you get to this mid-course bit where it's obviously, this is where the stunt bit comes in, right? Because you've got all this steaming down the side. Now, I think there's supposed to be flame effects and stuff. There wasn't when I was there. I don't know if that's temperamental, if it's been broken for a while, but I'm pretty sure it's meant to be there. And then it kind of launches you again, and you go through this kind of helixy bit, and then, you know, come back into the station. I didn't find it very comfortable. I was kind of underwhelmed by it. I think it probably would have been better if that sort of fire section was working. Would have just added a little bit, because it was like, why am I sitting here kind of just waiting for something that's not happening? So yeah, listen, it's not too bad. I wasn't a massive fan of it though, so this one is going in take it or leave it. Right, one of the things I complimented a lot of the American parks on is flat rides, and I did so because, well, that's a rare thing in the UK. All the parks seem to have got rid of them. But there was a flat ride here that visually looks pretty impressive, and I've never been on one before. And it's called Bad Apple. Now, it's a Huss Troika, I think is the name of the model. So it's kind of like these three arms with kind of the gondolas on it that rotate. It looks quite visually appealing. Like, it's quite a nice looking ride to watch, especially at night. At night when it's lit up, it is absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, it didn't do very much. Like, it was very underwhelming. It is still, like, I appreciate it for being that kind of older attraction, right? Very much like Parks and Nobles when I went there was lots of older attractions. I do like that some of these parks keep these older attractions. You can't get this Huss Troika anymore. So, you know, I'm not going to get rid of it, but I will put it also in that take it or leave it pile. So, I'm assuming that there are some parks in America that have converted these next rides. They've got the vintage cars, right? And theirs is called Blue Ridge Tollway. Now, I say converted because the couple that I did in America recently, and I know this is also true in Disney, they're all still petrol powered. Now, they used to be petrol powered everywhere. The majority of the ones, UK and indeed in Europe, have now transitioned to electric. Love them or hate them, that's just how it's gone. And I found this one kind of interesting because, you know, it's noisy. And I'm in the noisiest petrol powered thing that I could possibly be in. It's smelly. It's got a bit of grunt to it. But I still kind of enjoyed it. So, you know, it is kind of a bit of a dying breed. And I'm sure at some point it'll get converted. I mean, it's a good thing for the environment, but at the same time something's going to be lost because they're all underpowered when they're electric, and they lose that kind of the senses. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed it, and I'd keep it. The park has a dark ride, specifically a shooter dark ride. Now it's Boo Blasters on Boo Hill. The problem with shooters is some of them are really, really good in that you know what you're shooting and they're decent targets, and others you either can't tell if it's you or the targets are tiny. This one didn't feel like it was that great. Like it was, if I remember correctly, this was the one that every time you shot something, something happened. Like there was always it always triggered an animation. Pretty sure that was this one. But the flip side of that was that the targets were tiny, really, really hard to hit. And it was the typical like UV thing, which I don't know, I kind of feel like, and it's true of some of the rides here as well, like Alice at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I think maybe they've just gone too far. That one, Alice kind of gets away with it because it's supposed to be this sort of trippy thing and but this, I don't know, it just felt like, oh, we can use UV, let's just paint everything. So yeah, that said, there's not a massive selection of dark rides at this park, so I'll put this one in take it or leave it. The next one I am absolutely gutted about. So their headline attraction, Pantherian, wasn't open. I have a funny feeling it hasn't opened since they rethemed it from i305. Could be wrong on that one, but definitely the day we were there, it was not operational. And I really, really wanted to get on it because first of all, it did look quite intimidating. So, you know, the old name was good. But everyone mentions that first drop and how it turns and almost everybody grays out on it. Now, typically coasters don't impact me in any shape or form. There's very few coasters that I have gone on and either felt ill or grayed out on. Some of the pretzel loops on flying coasters get close. So I would have liked to have experienced this, but I did not. So this is one that I cannot rate, but if you've been on it, I would love to know your thoughts. Right, so the next one is another flat ride. So I've said this in a few videos now. Next year, Blackpool gets the big Intamin gyro swing, and basically anytime I see a gyro swing, I'm like, get me on it. Whether they're small or large, I just want to get on them and experience it. So they've got one, and it's called Delirium. Now, I have no idea who manufactures this, but it's the weirdest version of this ride that I have ever seen. I mean, there was weird batching issues the way that they load the ride. So all the seats are numbered, and basically ahead of time, whilst the ride isn't operating, they're going around the next batch of riders and saying, oh, you're seat 21, you're seat 22, blah, 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 blah. By the time it gets to it, a lot of people either weren't paying attention, don't know how to count, or had just forgotten because people were not in the right seats, which then just caused problems because obviously the guy had taken the effort of trying to keep groups together, and you know, people were just sitting where they want, and then it's like, oh, now there's not enough space for this group. And so that's a bit of a shambles. Big bulky over the shoulder restraints, which I struggled to get the seatbelt in, not because I'm overweight, I mean I am, but not because of that, just because it was really awkward. There wasn't enough like room for your arms, which also meant when the ride was finished, I couldn't actually reach to release the seatbelt, which is problematic. And then the way that the kind of controls work is weird because like the gondola is almost, I think it's split into 3 segments, and between each segment there's a control panel on the actual gondola itself, but it kind of sticks out at a weird angle. So it looks really strange. It wasn't the most forceful thing either. So, you know, despite all the things I've just complained about, the ride experience had been all right, great. But it wasn't. It was pretty mediocre. So, yeah, I'm gonna scrap this one. Right, I seem to have a lot of issues with B&M floorless coasters when I was over in America. I did quite a few of them, quite a lot of the parks have them. Now, some of them were converted from stand-up to floorless. Some of them were just genuinely floorless. There's one here called Dominator, and now it looks quite impressive because I think it's got the largest vertical loop, massive, huge big loop on this ride. What's really weird is that the track colour is orange and the loop is yellow. I don't know if that's deliberate for some reason, or if the loop's been replaced and they couldn't find the right colour in B&Q, so they just painted it. I have no idea. Don't know why this is. If you're American, you won't know what B&Q is. It's a DIY, a hardware store. Yeah, so this thing, it wasn't too bad. It was a very good layout, had some decent forces in it. My problem with all of these floorless coasters is I'm a short arse, and because I'm a short arse, the restraints are right here. And that means that every time you hit some little bit of a bump in the track, my head is a pinball. So I think that is why I had no luck with these B&M floorless. The trains just don't fit my body type. So yeah, it's impressive, and it's definitely not that bad that it needs scrapped. But I'm gonna put it in take it or leave it because they just don't seem to be the ride type for me. Right, the next one's a little coaster, nothing too spectacular, but I kind of liked it. It's their Mack Wild Mouse, known as Apple Zapple. And one of the things I did like about this park is I liked it at times and it frustrated me at other times. The ride ops are very much trying to entertain you, right? So they're on the PA system and they're kind of like trying to hype you up for the ride and stuff. And that works sometimes, and other times it slows down dispatches and you're just like, get on with it. The thing that I liked about this though is that Apple Zapple is quite near Racer 75, which we'll cover shortly. And there's banter between the ride ops on those two rides because you can hear the PA from each because they're quite close together. So at one point, I got on Apple Zapple and it said, enjoy your ride on Racer 75. And I'm like, wait, what? And then on Racer 75, they went, enjoy your ride on Apple Zapple. So that was kind of, you know, I like the playfulness of the staff here. I thought that was quite good. But listen, it's just a reasonably basic Wild Mouse, but I kind of enjoyed it. So I'm gonna keep it. So another flat ride, which I joked in the video that the marketing team must have spent months coming up with a name for this because they have a drop tower called Drop Tower. And it's quite an imposing one. It's pretty big. I want to say it's Intamin, and I'm saying that just because the seat arrangement looks like the same seat arrangement on their gyro swing. I haven't checked, could be wrong, let me know if I am. But this thing was quite impressive, takes you up, it's reasonably high. Can't remember if it spins at the top. Can't remember. But when it does drop you, first of all, caught me off guard. Obviously, you know you're going to drop, but there's no indication of when, which is kind of a good thing because it does catch you unaware. And then quite often with these things, they start braking quite early on, so you've not really got much speed and then you're slowing down. This thing, the opposite. To the point that I was like, I'm about to die. This is going to hit the floor. And then the brakes kicked in and at the last second, which, to be honest, is actually really good because I think it adds a bit of exhilaration to it. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one and gonna keep it. Another tower they've got, not really an attraction, well, it's an attraction, it's not a ride. It's kind of like one of their centerpieces, and that is their Eiffel Tower, which, you know, as you might guess, is a replica of the Eiffel Tower. Not to scale, I think it's about a third size, maybe half. There was somebody that went on the ride and said, oh, is this the size of the one in Paris? You're not even close. I'm pretty sure they actually already said this is a such and such scale, and they still asked the question, is this the size? It's like, no. Anyway, you get in this lift, you go up the top, and then you get a cracking view around the park. Deceptive though, because when I was up there, I was like, on a positive, this is quite a small park, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, perspective, everything looks a lot smaller when you're like up there, so it looked compact. It wasn't. My feet were hurting by the end of the day. But I did enjoy this ride. Well, attraction, it's not a ride. So yeah, keep it. So a few people pointed out I was kind of grumpy in the vlog from this park. If you haven't seen it, I will link it at the end of this video. But I think it was a very long trip, right? We were there for close to 2 weeks. I think this was the point where I personally just kind of was exhausted, right? We'd been day after day in a park. The weather was ridiculously hot. I was drained, right? And I think that came across in the vlog. So apologies, I know I'm a grumpy Scotsman, but I think I was maybe too grumpy this day. This next ride, however, triggered me because I was like, oh, there's a big wheel. I'll go and enjoy the big wheel. So I stood in the queue for the big wheel and I get to the front. How many's in your group? Oh, just me. You can't go on your own. What? I can't go on my own? And I'm like, surely you would just put me with another group, like, you know, fill the gondola? No, I wasn't allowed on this ride. So that annoyed me. Now, somebody's told me this is because there was an incident either on this wheel or another wheel in the past. So for insurance reasons, they don't allow people on their own. Okay, that wasn't clearly indicated. If it was on a sign, I didn't see it. So I stood in the queue for a while for nothing. But again, surely, I mean, they're big, big gondolas. It's not like they're small, in which case, you know, putting an individual with a couple's a bit weird. They're huge, so you could fit people into them. But anyway, I never got to experience this one. The park looks fantastic on the other high rides, so I'd imagine there's a good view up there. But yeah, I can't rate it, but if you've been on it, tell me what it's like. Right, as always, we are about halfway through this list, and that means that it's time for me to ask you to hit the like button and subscribe. So to do that. And the next one is a kids coaster. There are two in this park, and the first one I'm going to cover is the Great Pumpkin Coaster. So this is a kids steel coaster. If I remember correctly, it was one of the more comfortable kids coasters. And I say that because a lot of the kids coasters we went on this trip, I know they're aimed at kids, but I've said it before, quite often a child will be accompanied by their parent, and these trains ain't designed for that adult to get on with them. This one I don't remember being too bad, so I'm pretty sure this was more accommodating to adults. And listen, I've said it many times before, I appreciate kids coasters because they introduce the younger generation to coasters. So yeah, I'm going to keep this one. There was a couple of standout coasters in this park, and they were both kind of sleeper hits in that we went in with expectations of other attractions being the main things. And again, I didn't get on I-305, so it probably would have been the top dog. As it stands, without it, the next coaster was one of them, and that is Grizzly. So it's one of their wooden coasters. It's kind of hidden, so you can't see it. I mean, obviously, from those taller attractions like the Eiffel Tower and stuff, you can see it. But it's very difficult to see any of the track from ground level, which is fantastic when it comes to night rides. So this thing went in with very little expectation, wooden coaster, all right, fine, whatever. It was insane. It was almost on the violent, uncomfortable side. Not quite, wasn't bruised on it just yet, but yeah, it was pretty vicious. In fact, I'm sure this was the ride that somebody in front of me lost their hat. Which is why they say secure all loose articles. But yeah, nighttime, there's chunks of that ride that are pitch black. It was absolutely bonkers, and of course, as with all coasters, it had warmed up by the end of the day, so this was definitely a sleeper hit. This is definitely getting kept. The next one's an honourable mention, or dishonourable probably. I didn't go on it because I absolutely hate these rides, and for some reason they seem to be really popular in the parks we visited. So this one is Linus Launcher, and it's that damn Zamperla toast rack. Now, I don't know why they're popular. They're uncomfortable. I don't know anybody that enjoys them. But as I say, several parks I went to had them. I don't know why. So despite not going on it, I know what they're like. Scrap it. So I mentioned that there was a couple of sleeper hits, and the next one falls into that bracket. It was the other wooden coaster known as Racer 75. Now, this is a dueling coaster, and this is where the staff banter was both really, really well done, but verging on overdone. So you've got the two stations, red train, blue train. I don't know if they've got 4 trains, in which case there might be other colours, but the day I was there, red train, blue train. I think it's north and south. So of course they've got all the banter going on with the right red train, boo the blue train, right blue train, boo the red train, all that kind of stuff.
Fine, we gonna take that red train. Have you boo the blue train? We're not gonna take that. It's like, can you guys boo the red train? Boo!
So the two ride ops are working very well together and stuff, which is also kind of interesting for a dueling coaster. They obviously are independently operated. It's not like there's one ride op that just dispatches both at the same time. They do their own things. Now, I don't know the technicalities. It could be that they both have to press a button or they're independent. But it was pretty cool. And it was another one that was a lot of fun. The day that we were there, the red train always won. So I don't know if that particular day the bearings have been greased better or if that is just the general rule. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun. And another one that was great at night when it was warmed up. So 100% this bad boy's getting kept. So you've probably seen other videos where myself and others have been talking about Bolliger and Mabillard, B&M, their latest coasters, really not being up to par. Certainly not the standard that we expect for B&M or have expected in the past. So the new coaster here was a B&M wing coaster known as Rapterra. Now, we got some exclusive ride time on this in the morning. Didn't quite go to plan because we didn't get in on time. Took ages to get to the ride wasn't working. So we only ended up with about 15 minutes of ERT instead of an hour. But nonetheless, we got some time on this before it opened to the park. And I'm kind of glad we did, because I would have been really disappointed to have stood in a queue and waited for this ride. And here's the thing, right? Myself and most of the others in the group, we noticed that rattle that everyone talks about on B&M, right? And you've probably all seen the videos of it going down the launch track and vibrating all the way along. Personally, I could feel that. You could see the train, the cars in front of you vibrating, and you could feel it. Would Joe Blogs feel it? This is the general public? Are they too like wrapped in their head about this whole, you know, I want a coaster, oh my god, it's going really fast? Maybe they wouldn't, maybe they don't, right? Maybe it's just the enthusiasts who are a bit more chilled out and attuned to these things that notice it, but I definitely did. And for a brand new coaster, I wasn't that impressed with it. Not the worst by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely not a new headline attraction. And I've heard some saying the ride that was there before, Volcano, was actually better. So yeah, disappointingly, this one is going to take it or leave it. There's a ride just round the corner from that is very much a dying breed. I'm pretty sure there was only ever 6 or 7 of these manufactured. It's the Mack bobsled. Now theirs is called Reptilian. Again, if you're in the UK, think Avalanche at Blackpool. Same attraction. I would argue the one we've got is better. I've heard a lot of people saying it's one of the best, and it's not standout great, but this one was kind of odd. So it took you up and you did a little bit of a sort of, was there a helix or was it just a turn? I can't remember. But there was then this long straight with trim brakes, which just felt odd, before you then went into a helix and stuff. It certainly wasn't the worst, and because these rides are super uncommon, I kind of want to keep it just for that kind of nostalgic reason. You know, they're not bad rides, they're just not common, and there's not very many of them left. So I am going to keep this one for that reason alone, but yeah, another bobsled. So the next coaster is one that I'd been on its big brother a couple of days earlier at Six Flags Great Adventure. And prior to that, I hadn't heard anything positive about this ride type, so I went in with very low expectations. And certainly the one in Six Flags I was very, very impressed with. This one, being the smaller model, was okay. Now we're talking about Tumbili, or Tumbili, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's the SNS 4D coaster. So if you've never seen one of these, they're very, very compact. The track is just like in a single plane. There's the coasters, the trains sort of hang off the sides, a bit like a wing coaster, and they rotate, they tilt, and they swivel. So this coaster goes along this track and these things are sort of spinning as they go along, which I think for some people is very disorientating. I know some of the group did not like it at all. Andy, you didn't like it. Whereas I absolutely loved it. The more it span, the more I giggled like a schoolgirl. It was just a lot of fun. But this particular one doesn't spin anywhere near as much, and it's not as big as the one I did in Six Flags Great Adventure. But nonetheless, I did enjoy this one, so it's definitely going to my keep pile. So you probably have seen some of my other videos now where I seem to have a bit of a love-hate relationship with RMC coasters. Having done this whole trip now, I have been on, I think, 6 RMCs, and I like 2 of them. The one in this park is not on that list. So the one that they've got is Twisted Timbers. And it's, I think it's sort of a mid-size RMC. It's definitely not one of the larger ones, and I believe there are smaller versions. The first drop is really quite cool, right? So you got the lift hill, you turn around, and then you do this kind of almost Hyperia-esque, but not quite as much doubling back on yourself. You basically go straight into a roll into the drop, which is pretty cool. And then there's some, listen, RMCs are extremely fast-paced, right? There's no denying that. They're very, very smooth. They're masterpieces of glass smooth coasters. The problem I've got with them, and I've said this till I'm blue in the face, or blue in the knees, because it's the restraints. The damn trains are so uncomfortable. Now I know some people have no issues with them at all. I think the problem is they don't, a lot of coasters by design try to cater for as many people as possible, right? All different shapes and sizes. RMC trains don't seem to do that. They seem to be very specific to one particular body shape and size, and if you don't fit that, good luck, because you're going to be painful. Like, the problem with it is they're obviously intentionally aggressive rides, right? They're violently sort of flipping you around and trying to chuck you out the seats. So for that reason, they absolutely pin you in so that you're not going anywhere. They don't do it with comfort in mind though. I've heard some people saying that some of the RMCs, some of the original ones, had trains manufactured by Grizzly, which the next bit surprises me because I don't associate Grizzly with comfort, but apparently their trains had more padding in them and therefore they were more comfortable. The RMC ones on the other hand are just uncomfortable, certainly for me. As I say, I know some people find them perfectly fine. So I found this far too uncomfortable and violent, and certainly the second half where it was just airtime, 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 and I was getting absolutely battered and bruised. So I'm not a fan of this one. I don't want to go to the stage of scrapping it because I've said it before, I don't like scrapping coasters, and it's a good coaster, it's just not for me. So I'm gonna put this one in take it or leave it. The next one is a water ride, and a particularly bonkers water ride at that. Now, again, put this into context. When I was visiting the US recently, it was a bit of a heat wave. It was uncomfortable, and so any attractions that cooled you down were much needed. This one takes it to the extreme. It is probably one of the wettest water rides I have ever been on. It's their white water rafting ride. Now, some rides you go on and it's like, oh, you might get splashed, you might get wet. No, this one is, you ain't coming off this dry. There's absolutely no chance. It's a bit like Valhalla, right, in the UK. There's a teeny tiny chance you'll come off that dry, but you're probably drenched right through to the skin. Same with this thing. So it's weird as well because they load 3 boats at a time and then they dispatch the 3 boats at a time. And so it's not like a lot of these sort of rapids, it's that rotating turntable. So there's always one coming in, one going out, one coming in, one coming out. This is like 3, dispatch, 3, dispatch. And for the first part, you're thinking, oh, this is all right, get a wee splash. Oh, that's nice, it's cooled me down. Ah, lovely. And then there's a bit where the boat gets held intentionally, and then a giant water cannon goes off. And you ain't avoiding that. There's absolutely no chance you're avoiding that. You are getting drenched. And when we did it, there was a boat that was stuck and got drenched about 4 or 5 times before eventually it was released and able to move on. So it was needed because it was a very, very hot day. The problem with that though is that, you know, your t-shirt and your shorts dry off, your underwear does not, and it gets uncomfortable. So I did enjoy it nonetheless, and because obviously America gets decent weather, it needs to be kept. One more flat ride I'm going to talk about is one that I've never seen before. I think I have now seen versions of it elsewhere, but it's the only one I've experienced. Now this one is called Windseeker, and I kept describing it as kind of like a Starflyer. I know it's not, so don't come at me in the comments because, well, you're not on swinging seats, you're on kind of attached seats to these metal poles and stuff. But that's the concept, right? There's basically a load of seats in a circle, goes up this big tower, it rotates, you kind of swing out at a kind of decent pace. So some of the actual Starflyers go so fast that you're just getting blasted by the wind. You can't really concentrate and see what's going on because you're like, this was pretty chilled and you got a decent view of the place. What I did find kind of strange was it played ET music. Now somebody in the group said for them it played Back to the Future, I think it was. I don't quite get the connection with all these movie type kind of soundtracks, but it was a good view again from up there and not a bad ride, so I'd keep it. Right, I think I said earlier there was a couple of kids coasters, and we've talked about their steel coaster already. They also have a kids wooden coaster known as Woodstock Express. Now, this is quite humorous because it's quite a small compact ride. It's a kids ride, you'd expect that. But it's kind of opposite Dominator, big, massive thing. Just absolutely dwarfs it, which is hilarious. Listen, it's fun, it's a wooden coaster, it was quite comfortable. Obviously not the most thrilling thing out there because it's aimed at the younger audience. But again, I enjoy coasters that introduce the younger generation to coasters, and it's a wooden one, so win-win. This bad boy is also getting kept. Right, so there you go. So overall, there is quite a lot of stuff I want to keep, and not a lot that I want to scrap. But if you haven't seen the video when I was there, you might disagree with that because I'll put it up here for you to watch. I was quite grumpy that day.